Time now for a look at the day's top business news. Brian Quinn joins us for that. Brian, going to start in China, where the Communist Party is holding its plenary session this week. High on the agenda, of course, the country's 5-year economic plan.
That's right, Eve. This plenary taking place, of course, in a highly uncertain context amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. But while the global economy is projected to shrink by over 4% this year, China's is expected to grow. This in spite of an ongoing trade war with the United States, which has brought not only billions of dollars worth of tariffs, but also U.S. bans on Chinese companies like Huawei. Well, Beijing is now seeking to bolster its internal economy, in part by focusing on domestic consumption. But the government also wants to keep foreign investment flowing, and to that end, it is expected to take measures to make its currency more attractive for international use. Earlier, France 24 spoke to Stephen Innes, head of market strategy at Axie, about just that.
It's a good comment. We're looking for some type of indication whether we're going to move forward with internationalization of the currency. It's been a big talking point for like over a decade now, and we think that the time is ripe for Chinese lawmakers to go down that road, because they're looking at internalization of the economy, driving the consumption engines internal as opposed to external. Stronger currency benefits the attracting foreign capital, so we're waiting to hear some word on that front.
To South Korea now, where a memorial service has been held this Monday for the late chairman of Samsung, Lee Kun-hee.
Lee Kun-hee passed away at age 78 yesterday. In less than 3 decades, he transformed his father's small television maker into a global powerhouse that currently makes up more than 17% of South Korea's gross domestic product. The Samsung Group is now looking at a major shakeup as control passes to Lee's son and likely successor, J.Y. Lee. South Korea levies substantial inheritance taxes that could potentially force Lee's heirs to sell shares to pay, thus diluting their control. Meanwhile, some of the country's top politicians paid their respects to the elder Lee at his funeral on Monday.
Lee Kun-hee was an innovative leader who transformed Samsung into a global company. I thank him for enhancing national prestige and instilling a sense of pride in South Korean people.
Well, let's check in now on the markets. Brian, how are they shaping up so far today?
Well, Eve, shares in Samsung conglomerate's main holding company skyrocketed in Seoul after Lee's passing. Investors hoping that potential shakeup might strengthen its core electronics business. Asian indexes overall, though, losing ground as mounting COVID-19 cases in the West cast a pall on the economic outlook. The Nikkei in Tokyo closing just slightly lower. Shanghai and Seoul with some deeper losses, though Hong Kong closed today. European indexes opened deep in the red as well as new coronavirus restrictions across the continent weigh on investor sentiment. London down around 1.1%. The CAC 40 here in Paris off around 1.25%. The Frankfurt DAX down a whole 2.7% at the open.
Not a good first day to the week there on the stock markets. Finally, for this hour of business, Brian, controversy here over French President Emmanuel Macron's defence of French freedom of expression, and that could potentially impact the export market.
That's right. France is now urging several Middle Eastern countries to end their calls for boycotts of French products. Among those countries, Jordan and Kuwait, where goods made in France have been pulled from supermarket shelves. Sharon Gaffney has the story.
Staff at this supermarket in Qatar have been removing certain products from their shelves: tins of yeast, pasta, jam, anything that was made in France. It follows calls for a boycott on French products in several Middle Eastern countries. There have been similar scenes at stores in Jordan and Kuwait, where a major retail union has ordered a boycott on French goods. Calls for similar moves in other Arab nations have been circulating online, and there have been protests in countries including Israel, Libya and Syria. The calls for boycott come after the French president defended state secularism and the right to show cartoons of the Prophet Mohammed in the wake of the killing of schoolteacher Samuel Paty. Paris believes the backlash is being led by the Turkish president Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who's accused Emmanuel Macron of marginalising Muslims. The French Minister for Foreign Commerce has been tweeting his support for domestic businesses.
I've been in contact with some of the French brands affected by these unjustified calls for a boycott. I will continue to speak with the companies concerned daily and remain in contact with our diplomatic network, which is working on their behalf.
He said the agri-food sector would be worst affected, mentioning Bell, Lactalis and Danone. Last year, France exported 1.3 billion euros of food products to the Middle East. Overall exports to the region are worth an estimated 11.5 billion euros annually. It's too early to say if those kinds of figures will be affected by the boycott.
Okay, that wraps it up for this look at the business news this hour. Brian, thanks indeed for that.